Okay, but in doing so, she got an abrasion on her lower leg. She scraped off the skin as she slid in. So today, when she comes in, we clean the wound up and we put a dressing, we cover it up with combine roll or with gauze pads, Talfa pads, and cover the wound up, dress it, cover the wound up. We're going to hold that dressing in place, and we're going to use an elastic wrap, and we're going to use what we call an open spiral. The open spiral is used primarily to hold a pad or a dressing in place. Now, here are a couple things that I'm going to show you as we get started. And I think when we get these videos up where you can see them, I think they even address this in the video. We don't want the elastic wrap to fall off of her leg. One way that we can prevent that is keeping this loose end from dangling out of the elastic wrap or falling through the elastic wrap. Here's how we can prevent that. Here's her wound and the dressing that we're going to have there. And let me go around here so everybody can see. I'm going to start here, and look, I'm starting at an angle. I'm going to go around her leg, and I leave this little ear sticking up on the elastic wrap. Now, if I fold that down and go around the second time, that elastic wrap is not going to slide through the body. It's going to stay in place. Okay, let me back up and see if I can do it incorrectly and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, I've got the elastic wrap here, and I left it hanging out a little bit at the bottom on purpose because now I can take hold of it and I can pull it out of there. And you don't have to have an individual grab it to pull it through the bottom. What's going to happen when she runs around the bases? What's going to happen when she runs up and down the field? She's going to keep pounding, and as she's pounding, that elastic wrap that I just pulled out there is going to have a tendency to fall out the bottom and come out the bottom edge. So now let's go back. We'll do this again. We'll leave that little dog ear sticking up there. We'll fold it down, and we're going to hold it in place. That's going to be a little more difficult for me to get to the edge, but I'm going to reach up underneath here and find it. Okay, find that underlying layer, and now look what happens. It's not coming out. So if I secure it in place, then we're not going to have to worry about it coming loose at the bottom and coming undone. Now the open spiral to hold the dressing or to hold the pad in place is simply that. We're not worried about, probably should have got a 2 inch instead of a 3 inch, but we're not worried about making sure that overlaps all the way. If this is what we're holding in place, see, we can, as long as we circle the leg and hold the dressing or the pad in place, that's an open spiral. Okay. Now, if we want more compression or more consistent compression, we're instead of using the open spiral, we still anchor like we did before, and now we overlap the wrap as we continue up the leg. Okay. That's a closed spiral. And we could use that to hold a dressing in place. We could use this to hold a pad in place, but we could also use this for compression. Remember our principles: rise, rest, ice, compression, and elevation. If we want consistent pressure or compression, we'll use the closed spiral. Okay, so we will do, for example, if she has a bruise on her leg and we want some compression. If she has shin splints and we want some compression. If she has the need for a dressing or for a pad of some type, we would use compression. Now, let me see if I can back up and loosen that up a little bit so I can end up here in the front. When I'm finished, I'm going to remember and do the same thing I did when I started. Okay, if you look on that table over there are clips, and this particular brand has elastic clips with a little barb on it to hold it in place. Many of them just have little metal clips to hold it in place. Kelly's getting ready to go out to softball practice. I don't want to use those. because they've got those sharp little points on them, okay? And if you get pricked in the skin or you step on them, you cause a wound, you cause a cut. Okay, so I'm going to hold this in place probably with some tape. Give me a piece of tape out there. So I'm going to hold it in place with tape. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the same thing when I'm finished to hold this in place. I'm going to do the same thing I did to start with. I'm going to leave a little dog ear, and I'm going to fold it over. And I'm going to tape it in place. Same thing happens. Now, it's not coming loose.
Should you tape it to the skin or
If I was doing her calf, at this point, I would say it's not necessary because the muscle belly is going to hold it up. Now, if the wrap was going to end here at the muscle belly, then probably you need to figure out a method or a way to secure it so it doesn't slide down the leg. If this wrap was up here on the thigh, for example, instead of down here on the lower leg, I might not just do this, I might do around her thigh and around the waist to keep it from falling down. So find a way to help keep it up. Anchor it to the skin is one way. Okay, so closed spiral versus open spiral. So we'll get a partner.